Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Okay, so welcome everyone to the 14th episode of Expert Speak. Today we are lucky to have with us Alfonso Fiore, who is the head of products at AirAsia. And he's the head of product of travel packages at AirAsia. And prior to this, he had a long career in telecommunications and has worked in companies like Nokia and Grab. He also is an ex-entrepreneur. He ran 3Mojo, which is 1,000-member strong meetup community to connect student entrepreneurs, and has been a lecturer of entrepreneurship at INSEEK London. So in today's episode, Alfonso will share his journey on how entrepreneurship has helped him become a better product manager. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Alfonso, for taking out time to have this conversation with the community. So over to you.
Thank you, Diwakar. Thanks so much for having me. And welcome, everyone. I hope this is going to be something interesting for you. And thank you so much for having me. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to talk about, how entrepreneurship helps product management. And in particular, I'll tell you about the journey that I went on so far and what I think I've learned from it. So first of all, I'm a really big buff and I really like quotes. So please bear with me. You're going to see a few quotes in this presentation. So the first one is, whatever you do, don't congratulate yourself too much or berate yourself either. Your choices are half chance and so are everybody else's. And this is really something that I truly believe. And I believe that this is really something that I try to think of every single day, A lot of time we make our luck. A lot of time, we are just being lucky. And this is a quote from Barack Obama from a few years back. And this actually became very controversial in the United States when he was talking about infrastructure and how basically we are all standing on top of giants because we are all making use of the infrastructure that others built for us, right? So he said, look, if you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. And for example, the internet didn't get invented on its own. And again, I think this is really, really important to realize because a lot of time, we give ourselves all the blame, or maybe we think that, we did it all ourselves. In reality, life, work, and your personal life as well is very much about teams. It's very much about your IQ as much as your EQ, your intellectual quotient, but also your emotional quotient. So how well you actually are able to deal with others and how well you are in creating teams and work together with them. And finally, this is from Alice in Wonderland, right? The Cheshire Cat says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And every adventure requires a first step. So what do I mean here? Like, be bold, go out, try new things, and make all use of the time you have to understand what you like and what you don't like. And I think, as you will see in my journey, those are things that I really live by every single day. So let's start with first steps and how those things that I mentioned so far, how do I see them in my life? So first one is, the sheer incredible luck of being born in Italy, not because Italy is a particular country, but because Italy is a very stable country with good education. And obviously that allowed me to focus, to never be worried about what I'm gonna eat today, or never being worried as a young boy to work to get by, right? So I think this is again this is one example of where I actually was standing on the top on the shoulder of giants, right? I could just focus on my education and I could just focus on my passions. Then later, when I was a teenager, my dad was a business person, and he actually got his first personal computer, and that was again just luck. I did nothing to get it, and it was just something that completely changed my life, because I got really passionate about it. I start, obviously, as every teenager, I start playing a lot of video games. But then basically, that's where, it's not just about luck. My passion made me get this kind of very weird book. Is in Italian, I apologize. But it basically says, how to develop in the DOS system with batch files, right? And this includes floppy disks. So it was really amazing for the time. It had floppy disks with some example. And I remember I went to the local library. Obviously, there was no Amazon. Internet was not even close to be in every single house. But I was really, really passionate about computer systems. And I basically forced my local library to buy this book. And I don't know how many people read it after me, but I was really excited about it. And it was the beginning of, of my passion, right? So this is a little bit of luck and a little bit of passion. This is a very, very dear friend of mine. And he was like my mentor, almost like a father figure for me. And he's someone that, by complete chance, right, grew up and lived in my little village. I grew up in a small village of few thousand people in the hills in Italy, 150 kilometers from Milan, so very, very far away from everything. But it was super lucky for me that in this small village, there was someone that was very, very passionate about computers, that would actually teach me a lot of the things I knew at the time. Just before my university, everything I knew, I learned from him when it comes to computers. And so again, it's a little bit of passion because I was there. I spent a lot of time with him, but also luck because he was there. He lived in that little town. Otherwise, when I didn't have a car, when there were no public transportation, there would have been no chance for me without internet to learn all the things that I could learn thanks to him. So then fast forward a few years and let's talk about my university and my studies. So I really actually looked very hard, but I couldn't find any picture of our computer lab in the Computer Science University of Milan. So this was the closest thing I could find after spending quite some time on Google Images. And basically, why stubbornness? Because my family really wanted me to follow in my father's footsteps, and maybe this is something that many of you can empathize with, right? And finally, I just knew that computer science was my passion. I really wanted to pursue this passion, and even when my parents were trying to, bribe me, force me, do whatever, right, to kind of convince me that I should have followed in my father's footsteps, I kind of managed to be stubborn enough to stick with my guns and go for the kind of work I really wanted to do. And so I joined and I went to study computer science in Milan. And this is like something that I've learned during my years at university, is that you shouldn't fear being different, right? And there are a couple of examples that I want to make because they're very fond memories for me, and they make me laugh a lot every time I think about those. So I actually could find a picture of one of my two teachers. So this is Antonio Sparzani, our physics teacher. I want to make this example because I think it's really telling of what it means to not being fearful of difference, right? There was a physics class, and at the end of this physics class, the professor made all his explanation, all his theories, and I raised my hand. And he said, "Yeah, sure. What's the question?" And I said, "Well, you based all your class today on this concept, but how do we know that this concept is true? How can we know that?" And the professor said, "Well," he laughed and he said, "Well, because last week I spent the entire hour proving that to you guys." And so everyone in the class laughed. And we're talking like hundreds of people, right? This is not a picture of my class, but it looked a little bit like this. And then the professor kept talking and he said, "Yeah, sure. But I wonder how many of you had the same question in your mind and didn't dare to ask." And I think that for me was really a turning point, in a sense that I've always been outspoken. I've always been someone that didn't fear to ask questions. But that really gave me the strength of, if I have a question, I'm going to ask it. And if I have a question, and I want to know, and I want to learn, and I want to understand. And so that's the first example. And something else that happened that I really, really remember was my operating system class at the university. So for me, classes were very different, right? When I was studying mathematics and physics and statistics, I was quite struggling, let's be honest. But then when I was studying computer science, it just all made sense for me, right? I loved it. It was fascinating and really beautiful. And so during the operating system with Professor Tisato, I kept asking questions, and I was really like, I was so excited and so happy for what we were studying. And I really didn't care about breaks and when the lesson ends and all that kind of stuff, right? I was just there in the moment and I was just enjoying, right? And so once I asked a question, and basically, again, these hundreds of other students in my class kind of were upset and started to kind of like talk with each other because it was about to be the time of a break, right? So they wanted to take a break. And so the professor heard the noise and they said, okay, guys, do you want to listen to the answer or you want to go for a break? And everybody said, oh, break. Okay. So he said, okay, you guys go for a break and let's get back in 15 minutes. And you, which was me, right? You come to the whiteboard and we talk about your question. And at that time, I felt like, oh God, this time I think I really exaggerated, right? So I was a bit afraid. I went to the blackboard, to the whiteboard, and the professor said, this is where it gets fun. And again, this was something that for me was, again, like very, very formative for me. Because again, until you ask, until you go out of your way, you never know, right? And I thought, okay, this guy, has been speaking for an hour. He wants to get a break. No, instead, the thing he said was, this is where it gets fun. So again, don't be fearful of being different. So during my studies, I had the opportunity to do an exchange, and a lot of my friends at uni, right, took that opportunity for an exchange as a way to kind of party, go to France, go to Spain, where we can, live a very similar life to our own. Instead, I actually applied for one of two positions for exchange in Helsinki, Finland. Which, I'm probably some of you know, but it's very, very different than Italy, right? I mean, the winter there is minus 20 degrees Celsius. It's quite harsh, right? But to me, the most important thing was that it was a country where everybody was speaking English, and that's what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to learn English. I knew that English would have been something that would change my life, that could allow me to work everywhere in the world. And Italians are really not well known for speaking very good English. And so I wanted to get that experience. And it also happened to be, so that's the lucky part, it happened to be the home country of Nokia, which at the time was the biggest telecommunication company in the world. And so by a little bit of luck and a little bit of determination, I ended up working at the Nokia Research Center. This is what you see in the picture. So during my exchange studies, I actually applied for an internship at Nokia, and I was offered one. And at the time, they told us at the introduction that the Nokia Research Center at the time was the second biggest technology center in the world, just second to the Microsoft Research Center in Seattle. So again, a lot of luck, a lot of determination, but also not being afraid, right? My initial job with Nokia was actually not with the Nokia Research Center, but then internally, I actually managed to contact directors there, and they passed me on to people in their team. And long story short, I ended up there, and that was really like an incredible experience because they were doing so many interesting research. It was very theoretical. And another thing that I realized is that theoretical things are not for me, right? I'm a very practical person, and research is a very, very hard subject where you get results maybe 6 months, 1 year later, or maybe never. And that's not the person I am, right? I need to get results every single day for what I do. And then, so, fast forward 20 years, agile is really the perfect situation of work for me. So after graduation, I started working. And my first job was for the largest insurance company in Italy as a consultant for a technology company. And it definitely wasn't the right fit for me, right? So again, remember what the cat says, right? If you don't know where you're going, every step will get you there, right? Every road will get you there. So I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I don't think there is anything wrong in not being sure what you like when you're young and when you just graduated. And I ended up in this situation, and basically what I realized is that I want to do what's right, even when when the people in charge tell me otherwise. So I was working with a team of developers. It was my first and last development experience, and I actually realized very, very quickly in the first 1 or 2 weeks is that there were incredible inefficiency in the job we were doing. Right, we were spending a lot of time in manual tasks that could have been automated. And so I went to my boss and I said, hey, I think this should be automated, and we would actually get a lot of advantages out of it. We would be much more productive. And because we were consultants and because we were a third-party company working for this insurance, my boss told me, like, we cannot do that, right? We are paid to do this development, and so that's what we're doing. And that didn't go down with me. So I actually still did the job I was supposed to do, but then I was trying to do it a bit faster, and I was trying maybe to carve a couple of hours here and there and work evening and weekends on my idea. And so in a few months, I actually built this tool parallel to what we were doing using a different programming language. And long story short, in the next 6 months, every single person in the team started using it. And when I left the company, they had to add a new line for replacing me. Right? They had to have someone that was proficient in the language that was used for my tool, not just for the programming that we were doing for the insurance. And to me, that's again, right? Don't be afraid of your instinct, and make sure that there is a fit between the place you work and what are your interests, right? And what is the passion that you have. Later, I went back to Nokia, and this was like the biggest chunk of my career before entrepreneurship and before product management. And it was an amazing experience because Nokia was, again, at the top in telecommunication at the time, and it allowed me to have projects all over the world, South America, North America, Asia, and many countries in Europe. And so it was a fantastic personal experience, right? Being in your 20s and being every single month in a different country in the world, meeting people from all over the world, having experiences with so many different type of people, and learning a lot about my craft. It was a very, I would define it as a vertical job, because it was a very narrow job. But it was really something specific to the telecommunication world, and I really, really enjoyed it when I was in, like, let's say, these formative years of learning and experience. And then I decided, you know what, telecommunication is not for me anymore. So again, not knowing where you're going, every road is good, right? So I decided to start over, and so I moved to London. And I joined London Business School, and that's where I did my MBA. And this is a picture of the Santa pub crawl that every year the students of the new intake of London Business School does for Christmas. And you see, like, here, like, students from all over the world going for a pub crawl dressed like Santa. It was a really fantastic experience. And most than anything, that's actually why I'm a big, every time I hear this question, I always suggest that students, bright students, should actually go for a top class MBA, because I think the best thing that I got out of that experience is really opening my eyes to all what is out there, right? At the time, maybe even though I was traveling and I was all over the world, I was in a very, very technical role. And so I was very, my exposure to this kind of job, like, investment banking or venture capital or all those ideas were actually not that common for me, and I wasn't exposed to those. So the experience in London really, among many other things that we will discuss later, really helped me with understanding all the things that are out there and all the things that we can do. So this was my first startup experience. During my MBA, I basically took really advantage of London and all the opportunities that London has to give you. And I joined a startup at Google Campus. This is a picture of Google Campus in London. And the learning, now we're getting more and more to the entrepreneurial part and product management part, right? So here, Dave Thompson is the CEO of, at the time, the company, funny enough, was called Grab, nothing to do with the Grab of today. And now it's called Magic Tab. And it really taught me how to listen to customer, right? I was actually doing a little bit of as a side project during my MBA. I was doing some sort of sales for him and trying to find kind of early business development and find customers. And because in my previous job, in my last job in the telecommunication world, I was really working in sales. Basically, I was very salesy, right? I was trying to pitch our idea rather than listen to the customer feedback. And thanks to Dave, right, I really understood the importance of listening to customers and really focus on their need. Here, this is again during my MBA. I had a fantastic opportunity to have an exchange period at Berkeley Haas in California, in Berkeley. And again, how did I get there? It was a little bit of determination. I really wanted to have this opportunity to be in Silicon Valley, and networking. I really made use of the networking opportunities in London. I talked to everyone that was basically deciding who would go from London to Berkeley. I networked with everyone. I really made it clear that I was really passionate about this, and I managed to get this opportunity. And the biggest learning from Berkeley, from Haas, was this class of venture capital that was taught by actual venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. So it was a fantastic opportunity. And they taught me this concept of structure drives behavior. This actually would require its own presentation if we would want to go very deep in structure drives behavior. But suffice to say that it really changed my life. And now every time I think about product management and I think about how to really get customers in a certain direction, I really always think about what structure can we put in place to drive the behavior that we want to drive in our customers. Now let's focus a little bit on the entrepreneurial journey itself. What have I done and what did I learn from an entrepreneurial perspective? So this is Castro. It's a neighborhood of San Francisco, and this was kind of a course that I did, an extracurriculum course that I did while at Berkeley with the National Science Foundation. It was called the Science Corps, and with Steve Blanks, organized by Steve Blanks, the author of the Startup Owner Manual. And the quote here is from Tobias Lutke, which is the CEO of Shopify. And this is a quote that probably you guys heard in many other ways, but he said, like, it took about 10 years to become an overnight success. And here I was walking around Castro, which, as you probably know, is the gay district of San Francisco, because the idea was actually a way for people to vote every single day with their wallet, rather than every 2 years in the ballot box, right? So think about every product you buy, right? And actually, now if you guys follow US politics, it's something very actual, right? Just last week, there was this issue with a product that became a like it's beans, right? It's just a food, but due to the political discourse in the US, it became a weapon of politics, right? The Republican were pro this food, and so the Democratic actually kind of said something against this brand, right? And this was kind of the idea that I had in 2013. The idea was what would happen if, instead of buying products just because you need that product, you would also align your buying with your actual belief in a political way, right? So because there is always many choices, and because when we go to the supermarket, probably often we just pick something from the shelf, what would happen if you had an opportunity in your app, in your phone, to understand, if you give money to this company, what happened with that money, right? What party does this company support, and the leadership of that company? So what does it mean, determination? It means that, and the quote above, I think that it was very easy for me to give up, and that kind of taught me a lot about the kind of determination you need to have in order to be successful as an entrepreneur. And I think that entrepreneurship is the most difficult thing, and I have incredible respect for people that manage to be successful as entrepreneur. I'm sure you know that many statistics, like 90% of startups fail, et cetera, et cetera. This is definitely true. And so I have utmost respect for people that can go through thick and thin and can really spend years and years on an idea, and can really commit to that until they manage to get something out of it. So in this case, I didn't show that kind of determination. And even though I still believe that this is a great idea, I never quite follow through. So this is another, I guess, funny, if you want to think about it as funny thing, is like hindsight is always 2020. So during my MBA, I did an internship in Amazon, and Amazon offered me a full-time job, right? And at the time, as part of the MBA package, they offered me, let's say, about maybe, I don't know, $70,000, $80,000 of stocks, right? And so I look it up, and the stock price went up about 10x from the time they actually offer me that opportunity. So right now it would be close to $1 million worth of stocks. So, well, insight is always 2020, but I didn't join Amazon at that time. So this is, again, so many opportunities in London, and this is something that I really wanted to drive, right? During my class in Berkeley has, the one that I mentioned earlier, the venture capital class, one of the things that those venture capitalists said over and over and over again to us is that, your ecosystem is everything. And this is why San Francisco is so incredibly successful as a hub for entrepreneurs. And they used to have this example of the Renaissance, right? There was no place on earth to be during the Renaissance except Florence in Italy. And they actually said that, San Francisco is the Florence of the 2000s, right? In their opinion, there is no other place in the world to be if you want to be an entrepreneur except San Francisco. I'm sure that this is something that, we all have our opinion on it, but I think that it's important to kind of understand the power of this ecosystem, right? And so I really took full advantage of the opportunities of London. And this is actually an app which is very well loved in London. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but it's called City Mapper, and is an app focused on public transport, right? And I was super passionate about it. I thought it was a fantastic app. I still use it today in Singapore because now they're active on many cities in the world. And at some point, they actually had an opening for product management. And so I knew the guys. I actually talked to Omid, who was the general manager. I met him through London Business School. And I called him and I said, hey, this is amazing. It's a great opportunity. I love you guys app. And Omid was very honest, and he said, like, man, you're not a product manager. You don't have the skills it takes. And even though I was so passionate about it, I didn't let that deter me, right? I was really determined to become a product manager, and I think he was right. At the time, I did not have the skills to be a product manager, but I really focused. I was really determined, and I really made sure that would become a reality for me later on. And this is just a funny thing for me. This is kind of my legacy in City Mapper. If you see those little images left and right, those are kind of icons that they use for each city, right? Each city has a little icon. And both of them, on the left, you see the icon of Milan. And on the right, you see the icon of Rome. And since I'm from Italy, at the time they told me like, hey, what do you think about those icons? And if you see that the icon on the left is drinking Aperol Spritz, and that's because I like Aperol Spritz. And so I thought, in Milan, there is a lot of culture about drinking this particular drink. So you should add it there. And they did, and it's still there. And on the right, you see that the guy on the scooter has a number 46. I don't know if you guys are passionate about MotoGP, but I am. And 46 is the number of Valentino Rossi, who's my motorbike idol. And so I told them, like, everyone in Italy loves Valentino Rossi, so you should add the 46. So this is kind of, I didn't manage to become a product manager for Citymapper, but I managed to change their icon for Rome and Milan. So this is kind of, I had so many different things that I wanted to say about London and San Francisco and the ecosystem. And basically, I just wanted to put it out there all together, right? This is all those brands, right? Cloud, ITs, Cognizant, Autonomy, are all companies that I work with thanks to being in London, thanks to my experience in the MBA, thanks of like always trying to do something extra, right? Something more. So I did several internships. I all the time that we had a project, I always try to get out of my way to do projects with real companies. And, this quote from Steve Blank, right? You get to make your own luck. The world is run by those who show up. And I think this is really, really important. I couldn't find another quote from Steve Blank, which I really enjoyed, which was like, a lot of entrepreneurs talk about luck, right? They will always tell you, I was so lucky to meet this person. I was lucky to be in this occasion. But what they don't tell you is that luck meant that on a Saturday morning, when everyone else slept in, they actually woke up and get to that call or get to that situation. Or maybe in the evening, instead of going out with their friends for dinner, they actually went to a networking event. And this is something that I really believe, right? Entrepreneurs have to make their own luck, right? Luck is important, as we saw, as I said at the very beginning. Half of your success is luck, but half of it is determination and hard work. For example, Sequoia, which I'm sure you guys know, it's one of the most famous venture capital shop in the Valley. It was a fantastic opportunity. During that same venture capital class at Haas, one of our tasks was actually interview a VC, and for them actually what they told us is, guys, today you have a badge, which is the Berkeley, the University of California Berkeley badge, and that will open every single door that you knock at. Versus, tomorrow after your MBA, you will be just, John Doe. But today you are a student at the University of California, Berkeley. So go out there and make full use of that badge. And so again, a little bit of luck, a little bit of determination. So when I joined as an exchange student in Berkeley, I was actually really, really focused on getting to know all the people that were there. So a lot of other exchange students there from other university, they kind of created a group with each other because they knew each other from the induction as a exchange student. And I did exactly the opposite. I turned around and in the class, when the professor said, okay, try to make your groups. And there were these two guys that super, super nice guys. And they clearly look like native San Francisco or Silicon Valley guys. And so I said, hey guys, can I join your group? And they said, yeah, sure, you can join your group. And turns out that one of them was working at a company at the time that was backed by Sequoia. And so lo and behold, we had a meeting with Rolf Botha, which is one of the directors of Sequoia that used to work at PayPal before that. And so it was an amazing meeting. The guy is obviously super, super bright. And again, a little bit of luck, a little bit of determination. And in general, right, this slide is really to tell you that, as much as you want, as much as determination you might have, being in the right place really, really plays a role. Because, if you think about Y Combinator, the way they work, Y Combinator is one of the most famous accelerator in the Valley, known among many other things to be the accelerator where Dropbox became world famous and Airbnb became world famous. You know, they really play this idea of ecosystem, and they really try that to make sure that all startups within the accelerator help each other. And so being in the right place geographically, fortunately or unfortunately, plays a very, very big role. So a couple of other entrepreneurial experiences I had. Pixavita with Bautier was a fantastic idea. I still believe, again, this could be a success, you know, maybe in the hands of, you know, a more experienced or more passionate entrepreneur. And the idea here was actually to have an app to summon, at the press of a button, a semi-professional photographer to really, during your holiday, get really professionally grade pictures. And I still believe that, you know, even in the age of selfie, if you would have seen the picture that we were able to take at the time with professional cameras and with professional photographers, they were really, really high quality. And so I really think that was still a great idea. But because we didn't really have a strong go-to-market strategy, we really didn't know how to get in front of customers. And today, you know, in such a saturated market with millions of apps, millions of ideas, a lot of opportunities, it becomes very, very difficult to grab the customer attention. And this is really a big learning from me, right? Again, structure drives behavior. So what structure could we put in place to actually get the attention of the customer? And that's something, and that's where Pixavita failed. We really couldn't find a way to get in front of the customer. So this is another startup, again, during those years. With Adrian Aventado, is actually a very passionate guy. He really believes in entrepreneurship. And he's a guy that really stuck with it, right? Because even now, almost 10 years later, it still works with entrepreneur, and he's still very much focused on entrepreneurship. And Language Hunt was a community of people that were interested in learning other languages and wanted to teach each other other languages. And here you see me on the stage of Don't Pitch Me Bro, which was an event in London where people could go and pitch people in the audience. And I was there talking about it. And Language Hunt actually got a little bit of traction. We got a few people on the platform. But again, you know, lack of, I think, you know, lack of determination. Again, I think this is something that, you know, you really, if you think about what Tobias says, right? You know, it took 10 years to become an overnight success. I think that is really the key of entrepreneurship in the experience that I had so far. So then I moved to another strategy, right? Okay, so if I don't have the kind of determination that it takes for 10 years to kind of build my own startup, right? Maybe the right approach is to join an established team. And so I created my own company, and as an independent consultant, I actually start to become product managers for established company. So this is Okoban by Travel Sentry, and I was there as basically the product manager for the entire solution. And on the top, on the bottom left, you see the TSA lock. Just to let you understand that this is kind of a very established company. I'm sure all of you have a TSA lock, the one with the red diamond on the bottom left. And so the John Vermeil, which is the CEO of Travel Sentry, decided to go in this solution for lost and found. And again, this is the learning there was, I wanted something which was much more close to technology and much more kind of on the cutting edge of technology. So really learning about what you really like and what are your passion. This is something that I think it's really important. And then later, again, as a independent consultant, I joined a funded startup called Nearit in Italy. And the learning there was that, again, the infrastructure, the ecosystem, this startup was in a very beautiful part of Italy, as you can see from the picture. And in fact, I'm maybe a bit too extreme because this is just the old city at the top of the hill, but in reality it's a very industrial part of Italy. It's very active. But again, it's not the part of the world that had that same appetite for disruption that you can find in London or San Francisco. And so even though I think the idea was great and a lot of company made it in this space, it was basically marketing for physical spaces, for SMEs, basically the way to track customers in the physical space through Beacon. There are a lot of companies in this area which are successful, but again, you need to be in the right place at the right time. It's not just determination, it's not just impact, but also a little bit of the luck of being at the right time at the right place. After that, very accidentally, through the London Business School network, I actually moved to Thailand, and I joined another startup, Digital Air, in the in the augmented reality space. And this is a picture of what it looked like to be there when Thailand is flooded, when Bangkok is flooded by water. And this is clearly the example of when another learning, money is not enough, right? There was a lot of money, there was a lot of support from established companies, but we really couldn't focus on the customer market fit. We really couldn't find what was the key thing, the key need of users that we could actually answer to with our solution. And so the idea itself was not enough, right? And finally, because I really want to have some space for your question as well. So the corporate world, right? So here I joined, first I joined Goda in Thailand. And I think that was my first like corporate product manager job. And the goal there is the learning there was really learn from the best. In Agoda, there is a very, very strong product management practice. And in my experience so far, it's been one of the best product management companies that I've seen so far. So if you really want to become a product manager, then try to learn from the best. And this is my luck and my determination there in Thailand to make it to probably the best technology company that there is, that the country has to offer. In terms of established company, there is a lot of entrepreneurship as well, but in terms of established company, I think Agoda is probably at the pinnacle there, and their product management practice is probably the most developed in the area. Then a couple of years back, that's when I moved to Singapore, where I'm living right now, and I joined Grab, which some of you know. It's one of the largest super app in Southeast Asia, if not the largest. It's a ride-hailing app similar to Uber, if you're more familiar with that, or Ola in India. And there, the learning is that sometimes you are the product, right? Sometimes you have to be, timing is everything, and you have to be at the right time, at the right place. Because when I joined Grab, the hyper-growth period was already past, right? And so even though there are so many opportunities and so many ideas and so many talented people in Grab, it wasn't that kind of very fast-paced environment that I really know that I would enjoy and could thrive in. And it was a little bit more, established at the time when I joined. And so finally, we get to the present day and my time as a head of product in AirAsia. And this has been really like a fantastic experience since the very beginning, and really together through thick and thin, right? On the left, you can see Tony Fernandez, our CEO, really coming down from a slide that is in the headquarters of AirAsia for Christmas. And just because he's a really fantastic character, a lot of like fun spirit, hard worker, but also always happy to laugh and happy to enjoy himself and make sure that this team is happy. And so he dressed up as Santa, came down from a slide which was supposed to be a chimney, and then he gave us kind of little gifts for an hour or so just to make us laugh and to make us enjoy and give us a little bit of Christmas spirit. And there, together with our CEO, Karen Chan, and the CTO, Pablo Sanz, basically, we are really building something different, and we are really in that hyper-growth moment, despite the situation today, right? We know that today, The majority of our fleet is still grounded, but we are still working really, really hard to build something amazing, and the quality, like the passion of the people, the quality of the teams, and really the entrepreneurial spirit that Tony and the rest of the leadership team brings us. It's really something that inspires me every day, and so I'm very happy to be there at the moment. And finally, one more quote: don't waste your time on jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. The race is long, and in the end, it's only with yourself. This is really something that, again, I truly, truly believe. I could have done a lot of different choices, and I think in the end, right, every time you make a choice, it means that you're taking a direction. There is another direction that you're not taking, and I think that this is kind of maybe the last lesson, or the last teaching from my experience that I'd like to share with you guys today. That at the end of the day, go with your direction, take a path, and don't look back, because at the end of the day, you can only go forward, and the race is only with yourself. So I hope this was interesting for you, and I'm looking forward to answer some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfonso. What an exciting journey you have had. So much to learn from all the things that you have said and your experiences. Thank you for sharing that. So let's jump to questions. The first question is from Ashish. Ashish, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Ashish.
Yes, so quite interesting. But I just wanted to understand, I mean, you have been into Nokia, right, for almost 8 years.
Yeah.
And then what made you shift and, get into an MBA, since you come from a technical background, and then get into product management? So how did that happen? I mean, what was your calling there?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, right? And I think, like, this I don't know if you're familiar with it, basically, but this is something that I really suggest you to read. It's called "Wear Sunscreen," and is a speech by Mary Schmidt. And some of the quotes that you saw that I shared today are from the same talk. It's very short, like it's a few minutes. And one of the things she says is that don't be afraid if you don't know what you're doing, or what's your plan at 20. Some of the most interesting people I know don't have a clear plan when they're 40. And in a sense, I'm just a very curious person. And that experience, in telecommunication, I felt like it gave me all it had to give, right? I feel like I was more passionate about meeting people and working with people, rather than technology, but I wanted both, right? I love technology, but I was tired to spend maybe days and days in labs and working, setting up labs. I had the most amazing experience. I can speak about it for an hour, right? All the crazy things that happen on those labs in the middle of nowhere. I spent 1 month in a lab in Istanbul, in the middle of the Spice Bazaar, right? And it was great. I loved it, but I was ready for a change, and I wanted to have more experience with people. And then I really, at the time, that was the revolution of the iPhone. It was of the app revolution, and I wanted to be part of that world. And that was my decision. That's why I went in that direction.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So I think the next question is from Seishu. So she asked, AirAsia is kind of trying to add other players' inventory, air hotels and other stuff, and trying to sell it through their platform. Step towards reducing dependency on other OTAs. What are the success so far on this initiative? And in all the things that you guys do, what priority is it taking in a good scheme of things?
Yeah, so yes, that's true, right? So we basically want to become the hub of travel for Southeast Asia. And this is what we're doing, right? This is actually the project that I'm working on, and we launched about a month ago for selected routes, and we are expanding to more and more routes. And it's true, right? We basically want to, for now, we are focusing on collaborating with other providers, because of course, again, from a established company perspective, right? If you think about the Agodas, the Expedias, the Priceline of the world, they started 20 years ago, right? So they started with a single contract, with one contract at the time, and they managed to build to that level of, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of properties all over the world. So obviously for us, AirAsia cannot do that in that way, right? We couldn't be able to, we wouldn't be able to be successful if we started with a single contract and we would offer the ability to stay in a single hotel, right? So right now, it's correct. We are collaborating with other platforms online, with other OTAs, and we sell their inventory. But of course, it's true. We try to actually focus on how we can kind of extract the most value from this situation. So we have ideas in place on how to improve our profitability, but most than everything, right? I think AirAsia, the differentiator of AirAsia is that compared to any other company that would be selling packages, right? We own the inventory of flight package, right? So it's really the only place where you can find the best price once you put together a package of a flight of an hotel. And this is why, I really believed in this vision when I realized what was the vision of Tony. And I'm here to support that, because I really believe that we have a unique opportunity in this market today, thanks to the fact that we own the flight inventory.
Thank you. Rupin, I believe you're online.
Yeah. Hi, Alfonso. Thank you so much. Really great thoughts there. One question. So, I am working on a product where we believe emotions drive behavior, and you had a very interesting thought there, saying that structure drives behavior.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit on that, because it's very interesting for me?
Sure.
A different point of view.
So this is something that I'm extremely passionate about, right? So maybe at some point you guys stop me if I talk too much about it, but I think that it's really important, right? For example, imagine that you have your app, right? Imagine I'm thinking about some of the challenges we had in the past with other companies, right? So imagine right now AirAsia, right? AirAsia has it's of course well known in all Southeast Asia and Asia for being a company where you can get flights from A to B, right? So what is the structure that you have to put in place to actually create this mentality in your customers that AirAsia can sell you much more? So of course marketing is a part of it, but as a product manager, how do I have to structure my product in order to really drive that behavior in the customer? So imagine, for example, you're building something for your flight funnel, right? And you're actually willing to move your customers from the flight funnel to the package funnel. What do you do, right? You create another entry point for people to go from a flight to a package. But then your customers are not familiar with that new behavior, right? And so maybe you're gonna get lost, or maybe there's gonna be a lot of churn. So what is the right structure in order to drive traffic from the flight funnel to the package funnel with the least possible loss of business and the least possible loss of customers, right? And so this is where user experience, design play a very important role, right? Because I believe that only by listening to customer, only by creating something that aligns with the customer needs, but at the same time driving the customer in the direction that you want, you can be successful. So it's kind of a push and pull. If you are in product management, if you're passionate about product management, you probably heard that, you don't have to, you want to listen to the customer, but you want to understand the customer need and then find what is the right answer to that particular need. And so I think the same way structure drives behavior is maybe a similar approach to that, right? You really want to understand the underlying behavior that you want to cause and what is the structure that you can put in place And it could be a physical structure. It could be a digital structure. But what do you want to build in order to achieve the objective that you want to achieve? I'm trying to really restrain and be quick because, you know, I want to maybe answer other questions. But, you know, if you guys are interested about it, if you want to have a deeper discussion about structured right behavior, I'm really happy to do it, because it's something that I honestly believe it's one of the most powerful ideas that I came across in my career.
Okay, sure. I mean, if we have time, but happy to have others ask their questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alfonso.
Thank you.
Shruti, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi Alfonso. This was a really nice session. Thank you so much. I was very curious to see that you've very admittedly told us that there were factors with there were product market fits which were not met. I just wanted to understand what were your red flags, or what were your factors that you were consistently hitting that led you to believe that this is maybe not working. Because we always learn from things that work, but if we started learning from things that don't work, maybe we'll get a better insight.
Oh my God, I couldn't agree more. Yes.
So if there is if there's anything you can share, I don't mean matrix wise, but I just mean red flag wise, that
Yes.
helped you figure out that this is maybe not working and we need to pivot.
Yes. So this is again another super interesting question. So thank you, Shruti. I think it's a really good question.
Thank you.
And I completely agree with you, right? One of the things that I'm doing in AirAsia, right? It's AirAsia is even though it's an 18 years old company, from a product management perspective is relatively young, right? So one of the things that I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to do in AirAsia is really help the management team to really create this product management philosophies and structure within the company, right? And again, thinking about the structured right behavior, how do we do that, right? I actually organize a weekly meeting in which every week one product manager or one designer share his experience of her experience, so that we can try to create this common culture of product management inside the company. So to your point, right? I completely believe that you can learn so much more from failures than from success. And in fact, that's what one of the things that I'm trying to do is to open up a little bit more the culture within AirAsia, of course, internally, to be very frank and honest about our mistakes and be very upfront about them, because you're absolutely right. I can learn so much more from the things that I failed at, that from the thing that I feel successful at, because success, it's, as I said at the beginning, I strongly believe that is half determination, but half chance, right? So how do you do it? So one example that really comes to mind is that I want to make in answering your question is that it's an experience of a London Business School entrepreneur back a few years, right? And he really tried hard to create one of those food packages, right? You know, the package where you get food at your door.
Yeah.
And at the end, he was very honest. After 1 or 2 years, he kind of gave up. And there is a post, I'm sure it's still online, where he discussed about his learning and his failure and his red flags. And then lo and behold, like a year or two later, there was, I forgot the name, I'm sorry, but there was a very successful startup that went on and on for a few years. I don't know if they're still active, but they had a lot of money, they had big fundings, and they actually did exactly the same thing, but they kind of became very successful. They gained a lot of traction, right? So what I'm trying to say here, Airbnb was definitely not the first company to provide this idea of accommodating people at your home, right? But it was, of course, it was backed by Y Combinator. It was backed by very successful entrepreneur, very determined entrepreneur. At the time, they were not successful. At the time, they were determined. And also, they came to the market in the 2008-2009 financial crisis. And so there were a lot of people that were actually struggling to make ends meet. And they decided that would have been a great idea. And that was a new way for them to make money, was to actually rent their own home, right? So one of the things that I really believe is, again, timing is essential, right? You can do everything right, but if the timing is not right, it's just not going to work. So to try to be specific about your question, what are the red flags, right? What are the red flags that you can see? I think at the end of the day, you have to be ruthless with your time and with your effort, right? You have to determine what is the place that that you want to be and the time that you want to be there. And then that's the only way that I've learned. The way that I learned is that you give yourself a time, you have a budget, and you give yourself a KPI that you want to achieve, and you try your best. But the fact that you didn't succeed doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just meant that maybe because of timing, maybe because the team member were not right, you didn't manage to get there, right? But if you see a lot of ideas, a lot of success stories, they are ideas that were used before, that they already started, and they just became successful because the timing was right, because the entrepreneur was actually capable to sell the story to investors and get a lot of money. I mean, think about also, the Vision Fund, right? Think about the WeWork story, right? Was it a success story? I don't know. I mean, definitely for someone made billions or hundreds of millions out of it. But, at the time, everything seems right. It was a success story, but today is not considered such anymore. So at the end of the day, it's all about what can you do and how fast can you improve and learn from your experience. This is why I'm a big proponent, and I mean, it's definitely not something new, right? I'm sure all of you are, but I'm a big proponent of MVPs, and I really, really work hard with my teams and the product managers that work with me to really focus on what's the word minimum? What does the word minimum mean? And how quickly can you go to market to test your hypothesis? So to me, those are the weapon at my disposal, right? Can I really go to the market? How fast can I go to market? Can I actually learn from my customers even before going to market, even before spending money in development? Can I learn from my competitors? What can I learn from them? Can I try to avoid making the same mistakes that they've done in the past, right? So those are kind of the things that come to mind. But absolutely, you're right. I think our culture, it's very much skewed against failure. But if you know, like, I think it was Thomas Edison that said, I forgot, but there's a Thomas Edison quote around trying 999 times and not just failing. It was just learning before he actually came about the right way to create a filament that could actually light a light bulb, right? So
I think it says you can now know 999 ways of not getting the bulb to shine. I think it was something on those lines.
As I say that I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Yeah,
correct, right? Exactly. So yeah, and you're right. This is something that I'm really, really doing, and I was talking about it with my manager, with the CTO, just again a couple of weeks back. How can we bring more failure stories? Because you do learn much more about from those. And last thing I want to say about this is I'll leave you with a funny story of failure from the very beginning of my first one of my first jobs. And it's good that I won't tell you which, because then I can tell you a little bit more of the spicy details, right? So it was one of my first jobs, and one colleague, right, was building a tool, and at the end of it, we look at the logs, and we were like, oh wow. Look, there was only one error. We were so good, right? We were so good that we were kind of celebrating each other, right? It was like, oh yeah, that's great, just one error. And then this guy left the project, went to another project, right? And then few weeks later, we kind of start getting calls that, hey, this thing is missing, this thing is missing, this thing is missing, and finally, we realized that the reason why there was only one error is because that project that was supposed to run, right, stopped at the first error and never start over again, right? It never continue, right? So yeah, those are the learning, right? This is why, if we could learn all the things that our parents and grandparents know, we would all be geniuses and all be perfect right now after hundreds of generations. But unfortunately, the only way to learn is doing those errors ourselves or learning them from others. And so there was a conference in San Francisco about failure. And yeah, every time I can hear about failure, I actually do. So absolutely, I agree with you.
Thank you so much.
So we have
Thanks.
one last question from Pranav Garg.
Hey, Alfonso. Hi, thank you so much for your talk. So I was just really curious on a slightly different topic. That being an entrepreneur, like it feels like I've not been an entrepreneur myself, but you are your own boss. You are responsible for steering the ship and all, right? How does it feel after you are sort of an employee again? You are working for a boss, working for a company. How does that feel? And yeah, like what can you share from your experience?
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a big difference between kind of going with your own idea and being really steering the ship, as you said correctly, compared to being in an employee in a company. And I won't lie, you're totally right. Here, definitely, I couldn't even remotely say that I'm steering the ship. But I think what is important is to carve a place for yourself where you feel empowered and you feel that you have some sort of ownership of what it is that you're doing, right? So as a product manager, especially when there are a few products that actually I can actually move around, right? I do feel that I have that ability to kind of impact my work, right? I don't feel I'm a cog in a machine. I feel that I'm a cognizant person that has an impact and can actually in occasion even speak to Tony and say like, hey, maybe that's a good idea. That's not a good idea. So I think what is important is, and I mean, I'm sure I won't, share groundbreaking news to any of you. I'm sorry, but those are things well known. But I think for me, in my experience, the most important thing is having a work where I really enjoy every single day. Again, another quote. I'm sorry, but I love quotes. You probably remember this the talk from Steve Jobs, right? The famous talk about stay hungry, stay foolish, right? And he said, right, every one of us will wake up a morning or 2 mornings and be like, oh damn, I have to do that thing again. And that's okay. Everybody does it, and it's part of our life. But the moment you do it for a month in a row, then you know that you have to move on. And that's been my golden rule for my entire life. And I have to say I've been happy with that rule. So as long as you enjoy and as long as you think you're learning, to me, then it's all good, right? It's not about steering the ship. It's not about being, the biggest dog. I think it's about going to work and whatever is your own startup, whatever is a large company, but really waking up in the morning and feeling invigorated and excited that you're going to achieve something more in that direction. That's my golden rule, let's say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So that brings us to the end of this session today. Alfonso, I think it's been incredible to listen to your story and your quotes. And I'm sure all of us are going back much more learn from this session. So thank you so much. Everyone, can I request you to give him a big round of applause? That's the max we can do. We can unmute and just clap for him.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure. And this is the QR code of my LinkedIn profile. So if you want to get in touch, by all means, I'll be happy to answer any other question if I have the chance.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.